All right, good afternoon. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee. Today is April 20th, 2016, and with me today are Council President Johnson, Councilmember Quincy, and Councilmember Palmisano. With myself, we are a quorum of the committee, and we can conduct the committee's business. Not with us yet are Councilmembers Gordon and Reich. I believe Councilmember Reich is on city business and will not be joining us, but I assume Councilmember Gordon will join us shortly. Today we have two items on our agenda. The first item is a consent agenda item, and it's a travel-related cost donation acceptance for police chief to attend the 2016 Harvard Public Safety Summit. The second item is a discussion item, and it is a police department response times directive, and it's a report of the first quarter of 2016 police response time. And this was an item that was requested maybe about 2 or 3 cycles ago with regards to staff direction from Council President Johnson and myself, I believe. And so with that, council members, we'll try to dispose of the first item. Anyone have any questions with regards to the consent item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The second item is with regards to police times, and Robin McPherson from the police department is here to give us a presentation, and we'll open it up for questions afterwards.
Councilmember Yang, Chair Yang, council members, thank you very much for allowing me to come up and present the first quarter report for the staff response times for priority 1, 2, and 3 calls. DC Arredondo had hoped to be here, but had a previous commitment that he was unable to change. So if there's any questions, operational questions, I'll certainly take those back and get back with you if something comes up. I wanted to point out a couple of things, just starting with the response times just in general. If you notice, there is a slight uptick from first quarter of 2015, but I am also happy to report that if you look at the fourth quarter of 2015, we're more in line with the normal, and so it's gone, obviously events of the fourth quarter were impacting response times. We're now back into the more normal range of what we would expect, and that virtually is the same for pretty much every statistic you see or every data point that you see on the next slides, with the exception of one, and that was only a 10 second difference. So again, we're more back in line with where we were prior to the fourth quarter of 2015. I'm not going to go over each precinct unless you have, again, specific questions, but I did want to go then into our staffing, which is the very last slide in the report. And as you can see, our staffing is down slightly from first quarter of last year to this quarter, but it's pretty consistent. And I wanted to give you kind of an update on what our staffing is right now and where we are as far as the cadet and recruit process. We currently have 839 sworn officers, and we are currently developing 25 cadets and 8 recruits. So that's a total of 872. If you remember, our budget for 2016 is an average sworn FTE of 862. On a super positive note as well, we currently have 35 CSOs. So those are in the background as well. And we're very happy that that is a very robust class right now.
Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple quick questions.
Sure.
Are any of these referenced in the presentation itself? I'm just wondering if you want to advance the slides at all.
No, you mean as far as the numbers of where we are? No, but I certainly can put those in for future presentations. This is a work in progress. So
I just wanted to know if I should be writing these down or if there's something I missed.
No,
and, wondered if you should be advancing your slides, but
okay.
You're fine. Thank you.
Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. McPherson, thank you for this additional information. I think it's very helpful, but one thing I would suggest is on the next one, have a little more contrast in the colors. Anyway.
Point taken.
Okay. But, okay, so to go over these numbers again, 839 sworn, those are people who have graduated from our employees, long-term employees, but then also the people that have just recently graduated, is once they get sworn in at their induction or whatever you call it, then they're counted.
That is correct.
Okay, so those count those people. So there are 25 cadets, and they're in training right now then,
That is correct, and they
Okay.
graduate in October.
in October?
Mhm.
Okay. And then 8 recruits.
And
And are they in training also?
They
with-
graduate in June.
Pardon me?
They graduate in
Oh,
June.
they're the ones that graduate in June.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then our intent is obviously with the CSOs, as soon as they are eligible, we will put them in a separate class as well.
And
So we
then
would
they'll go through training.
anticipate some of them coming up
Okay.
through the ranks fairly quickly here.
Okay. Okay. 35, yeah. And tell me again when the cadets graduate, I'm sorry,
No.
October?
October.
Okay, so are we in process then of establishing another class then?
My understanding, and I would have to confirm this with DC Glampy, is that we're hoping to take the CSOs and use those as the primary next
Class.
class.
Okay.
And then we would replenish the CSO class with new hires,
New CSO hires.
correct?
But that can take 2 years to get them.
1 to 2 years,
1 to
depending
2
on
years.
where they are.
Okay. That's a little scary. What about retirements this year?
Our retirements have gone back down a little bit from where we had been over the last couple of years, so I'm still anticipating right around 24 to 26,
Okay.
which is where we were from a budget standpoint.
Mhm.
I will tell you, it's pretty early in the year. We don't normally see the retirements quite this early.
Yeah,
Usually they happen a little bit later in the year.
good to know. All right, thank you very much.
Ms. McPherson, just a quick question here. With regards to the staffing slide, when you're counting, let's say 124 for the 4th precinct, I mean, is that street patrol officers and sergeants and inspectors, anybody at the precinct, or how are we counting that?
That is, Councilmember Yang, that is everybody in the precinct. The only thing that I've taken out from these staffing numbers is actually our K-9 unit. They're officially housed in Precinct 2, but as you know, our K-9 unit really works throughout the city. And so it's really not fair to include them, or it's not comparable, I should say, to include them in there. Mounted patrol, we have about 3 or 4 full-time mounted patrol. They're included in Precinct 1 numbers here because for the most part, they do work down in that area. But K-9 is taken out.
You can continue. You have anything more?
No.
Okay, okay. Council members, any questions of Ms. McPherson?
I guess I just wanted to say too, this is a work in progress, so if there's some other way that you would like to see any of this information, please feel free to send me an email or call me or just let me know. We'd be happy to play around with it and so we can provide the information in the manner that you'd like to see it.
Okay, and Ms. McPherson, I'm going to ask a question real quick and then I'm going to move it on to other council members. But, looking at the 4th precinct numbers, 2015 for priority 1 phone calls, I believe 2015 was the 4th quarter reporting. It was 1243. And then 2016 first quarter was 932. And I mean, what you're saying is that 932 is it's kind of the normal response time that we would get, I mean, in the 4th precinct. And, 2015 4th quarter, it's about 3 minutes more than that. And, can you, again, just kind of explain to me why that was the case?
Chairman Yang, I'll do the best I can here on this from an operational standpoint. But 4th quarter, obviously we had some events going around in the city that increased our response times because in many of the cases, our 911 responders were coming sometimes from different precincts. So obviously just the commute time, the drive time and things like that. Plus then we had a lot of people who were scheduled within certain areas. So that made a pretty significant, what I consider significant difference in the 4th quarter.
Right. Okay. Council President Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, one thing I think I asked, and I don't remember if I asked it in public safety, but I also, it looks like we have 839 sworn people. We have 430, if my math is right, assigned to the precincts. I would be interested in seeing a staffing chart across the city to see where people are assigned in individual departments or divisions, or, you know, just kind of a position layout where people are at some point, not today.
Chairman Yang, Council President Johnson, it would be helpful if you and I sat down and talked about exactly what you're looking for.
Oh, okay.
If
Sure.
that would,
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Yep,
And then
that'd
we
be
can.
fine.
Okay,
Sure.
great. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. McPherson, a couple of questions. One of the biggest margins that I see on the first quarter response times by segment for all precincts is that it seems like entry to dispatch has increased substantially. What do you, I guess, how do we account for that?
Councilmember Palmisano, I would have to ask both 911 dispatch as well as the officers for additional information. I couldn't answer that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'd be happy to get back with you.
Sure. And then the second question is actually on the first slide, the general response times from phone pickup to arrival of officer overall. And it seems like we've been making good progress on the priority 1 calls, you know, maybe a little bit less than priority 2 or priority 3, but is that intentional? It seems like it would perhaps be the most important calls to get there as quickly as possible, and it looks like we've improved it by about 20 seconds overall. Is that an intentional effort to shift some of our focus on getting those calls out even quicker, if even at the expense of maybe priority 3 calls?
Councilmember Palmisano, yes, it definitely has been a push to get those out quicker. One of the things too that I think we're finding more on the priority 2 and priority 3 calls, with our emphasis more in community engagement, I think that's actually impacting somewhat as well our ability to respond as quickly. If you have the same number of people, but you're spending more time, or there's more, you're trying to do more follow-up to make sure that all the loops are closed, then that's taking away from those 2 and 3 calls as well.
Yep. Okay, thank you. That's good news.
And Ms. McPherson, you know, I'm looking at the precinct 1 and precinct 2 response times, and they're a good at least a minute, if not a minute and a half, better than, let's say, the other precincts. And I'm wondering, what's the explanation for that?
Chairman Yang, I would have to double check on that. My gut on this would be that the geographic area. So, but I will double check.
Things are closer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can, give
Absolutely.
me something a little bit more, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty consistent with what we see pretty much every month. So.
Okay. Council members, any other questions? Councilmember Quincy?
Right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just another thought, and maybe this is something we could talk offline, Ms. McPherson, about. But obviously, we see the number of calls for service, at least off the top of my head, all the precincts need to be lower than it was in last year, 15 versus 16. But the response times are up a little bit. So that seems to me, because I can do math pretty quickly, is that do we have fewer units and squads available to respond? Or is it taking more time in between? Are they hung up at other calls before they go to other calls?
Chairman Yang, Councilmember Quincy, I am meeting, one of my questions is exactly what you've asked, is we have fewer calls, and so why is the response time? It's not significantly higher, but it is creeping higher, or it is higher than last year.
The N has changed.
Right.
Somewhere.
Something's changed, right. And so I actually am meeting with the inspectors tomorrow morning, and we're going to be talking about response time. So I'll be happy to pass that question along as well.
Right, and I think, as Council President was pointing out, or maybe it was the Chairman Yang here, is the distance, an area covered. So we might even get even more granular, is to find out about each sector within a precinct.
Okay.
Might be something to look at. 'Cause I'd be curious, in the 11th ward, when I have a large sector, my numbers can often get skewed when I look at just the third precinct, for example, because all the calls may be up on the northern end of the precinct versus the southern end. So it just sector analysis might help us understand the staffing levels a
Okay.
little bit.
Yeah, I will definitely research that. I don't know, I have to think about how we pull that information. That may not, information not be, I know it's in there, but I don't know if it's currently readily available. We may have to do some programming to pull that out.
And I don't want that to be the stopgap, but it's something I'm curious about, and I
Okay.
don't think curious should, hold up the parade, but I sure do appreciate this information. It's great to look at. Thank
Okay.
you.
I don't see any more questions, so I will thank you, Ms. McPherson, for the presentation. I will move to receive and file this. Council members, any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. With no further business, Council President Johnson.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take this time to read a really short letter. We are the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee, and we actually got a really nice letter from Hire Minnesota, which is a group that I think came together maybe a couple of years ago to talk about hiring in our city and being careful about our construction projects and making sure that we have really strong hiring goals for people of color in city projects. And so we got this letter, and I know the mayor put something on Facebook about it, but I kind of want to go on camera here and read it. And it says, Dear Council President Johnson, on behalf of the Hire Minnesota campaign, a campaign working to end employment disparities in Minnesota, we would like to congratulate certain city contractors for their work in ensuring employment equity by meeting, and in some cases surpassing, the hiring goals of 32% for people of color on certain city projects. And this is according to the city's 2015 compliance report. These contractors and projects that have met or surpassed these goals are Ryan Companies, Downtown East, Parsons Electric, Target Center, Watson Forsberg Rental Reclaim, Meisinger Construction, Minneapolis Convention Center Restroom, Urban Homeworks, Flannery Construction Rental Reclaim, Ebert Construction Traffic Maintenance Building Renovation, and also coming in very close was Lametti and Sons work on the 10th Avenue Storm Tunnel. Ryan Companies, Lametti and Sons, Ebert, and Parsons Electric also passed their female workforce goals on these projects. Often claims are made that these goals are impossible to meet. These projects, along with the 35% attained on the Vikings Stadium, demonstrate that the goals are not only possible to meet, but are possible to surpass. We believe this should be recognized, and the city should do everything in its power to ensure that other contractors follow their lead. Congratulations to the city and these contractors for this bit of progress to ensure equity in our city's hiring practices. Sincerely, Nick Core, Hire Minnesota. And I do think it is of big significance that when we do have this wonderful expansion of our city, that we have very strong goals, and they're being met by a number of the people that are doing work in the city. And I know Councilmember Gordon and I had a direction a while ago to talk about, what are these people doing that they're able to meet those goals, and can they be helpful to some of the other people who are finding it difficult to meet the goals? And so I just really want to, make sure that we keep this in front of us and say thank you to the people that did really do extraordinary work to get people in our city employed, and know that we're going to keep moving forward in this same direction. So thanks, and then thanks for the letter. Usually people don't tell us when we're doing well, so this was good to get. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, no problem. With no further business before us, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.